wow, he's 6'8". He moves like he's 360 pounds. He's 380 now, but um, he moves like he's, 295 pounds. He's just incredibly strong. He had all the traits to be a dominant player, but didn't know how to play the game. Didn't have any technique, no fundamentals, and a lot of that Jeff Stoutman has looked at it as like, and he's explained this to me. He didn't have to break any bad habits, so in a lot of ways, it was a positive. He could teach him from the ground up and literally teach him everything.
You got the Mac and Mac guys, Jody McDonald and John McMullen here with you on Birds 365. We'll get Barrett Brooks up here in about 20 minutes from now. The sports take here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel and also NBC Sports Philly, which you get to see Barrett every single day. They got him standing up. We got him sitting down. Barrett's a big boy. Damn.
Yeah.
And maybe it's when he's with Amy Fadul, because Amy's not near as tall. The other sports net anchor, the girl does hockey. I'm completely blanking out.
I am completely blanking out because I can't watch much TV, Jody, and I'm certainly not watching Flyer stuff. So
really,
yeah.
You don't watch NBC Sports Philly much?
Well, I like Barrett personally. I like Dave, but normally I don't have time. I like Rue. I like everybody there, but I just, and also when it comes to the Eagles, I don't like watching other people's stuff or reading other people's stuff because I don't want it clouding.
Oh, I understand that.
Yeah, that's so I don't watch a lot of it. No.
Yeah, people used to get mad when I would mention that on the air that I only listen sporadically to other shows on the channels that I work on. And well, how do you not? I said, well, because I don't want to be accused of stealing other people's ideas. If my ideas happen to match up with another person's ideas, it's just because we think alike and it's a coincidence. It's not like, ooh, I got to hear what he says so I can say the same exact thing. I never wanted to be accused of that. And I didn't want to have my thinking influenced by it. So I just drop in from time to time. I don't spend hours listening to my same show. So I know exactly where you're coming from, that you don't want to overdo other people's takes on the Birds when you want to keep your ideas separate and the same. All right, here's an idea that I know is going to get me in trouble with the Eagle fans. I saw your Sports Illustrated list. You're counting up or counting down, depending on how you look at it. Best football players on the Philadelphia Eagles. You had Goddard at number 5, which we both agreed in the first segment of today's show. If he goes down, Eagles are in trouble. At number 4, you had Jordan Mailata. Johnny Mack. We had started Birds 365 at this time last year. It was July, and the Eagles were getting set to report to camp. And Jordan Mailata was the backup to Dillard at left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of people have probably forgotten that we knew it was going to be a competition for the position, but you said, and you were right, as per what they did at practice, Dillard is going to get the first shot.
Yeah.
Dillard
that's why he was number 1, actually. Dillard.
Right.
Yeah.
The depth chart listing, however you want to decide it. Dillard was in that position as starting left tackle, and it was going to have to be taken from him. And it was. And it was obvious. And it was blatant. And Mailata stepped in and said, damn, this guy's good and this guy's ready. Now he's a contract extended millionaire who's hopefully going to be at left tackle for the Eagles for years. It just did a great job last year. There's no chance that was a flash in the pan, was there?
I don't think so. I don't. It is an amazing story, and I don't think people realize just how amazing. I say it all the time. The first time I met Jordan Mailata, he didn't know how to put on a football helmet. I mean, he was at ground zero. He didn't know anything about the sport. They just saw this guy, and he said, "Wow, he's 6'8". He moves like he's 360 pounds. He's 380 now, but he moves like he's 295 pounds. He's just incredibly strong. He had all the traits to be a dominant player, but didn't know how to play the game, didn't have any technique, no fundamentals. And a lot of that, Jeff Stoutland has looked at it as like, and he's explained this to me, he didn't have to break any bad habits. So in a lot of ways, it was a positive. He could teach him from the ground up and literally teach him everything, because it's very difficult to break bad habits. But as good as Jeff Stoutland is, Jody, and I say that, and it was the San Francisco game in 2020. The Eagles didn't want to play Jordan Mailata. They had a bunch of injuries. They had no stinking idea. They had no idea. In fact, before he got on the field, I would say they were closer to giving up than thinking he was going to be a star. And I don't think people realize this. And they had to throw him into the deep end of the pool. Had to. And Jeff Stoutland didn't know. And you actually used the term, I hope he's ready, but I don't know. And they threw him out there in the deep end of the pool, and he held up, and he held up, and he held up, and he kept getting better and better and better. And all the traits developed to the point where he's just bigger than everybody. He's more athletic. He's stronger. And now he's got, and the scary part of Jordan Mailata is he's still got room to improve, because the technique, especially he is phenomenal as a run blocker. I mean, he goes straight ahead. It's just, hey, bigger, stronger guy. And he understands leverage now, understands technique, but he's still got a lot of room to improve as a pass protector, especially against guys who are really, really quick. Those are the guys that he tends to struggle a little bit with. So he's got plenty of room to improve, and he's already one of the best left tackles in football. Arguably, the only one better is Trent Williams, who is a no doubt about it first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest left tackles of all time type of player. That's it, man. Everybody, you can say Tyron Smith if he's healthy, blah, blah, blah. It is amazing. And if I go back to that San Francisco game, and they were closer to giving up on Jordan Mailata. And if those injuries didn't happen and they weren't forced to put him on the field, he would have never gotten on the field. It's an amazing story.
It is. And that's why, and I'm not suggesting this is the way I think or this is the way I feel. I'm just pointing out that it's very infrequent that a guy who wasn't the highly thought of draft pick, 7th rounder, wasn't a guy who sat on the bench for years before he ever got a chance to play. To have a guy like that jump in and go from backup to start the preseason to not only win the starting job, but become, as John McMullen just painted him, maybe the second best left tackle in all of football, that doesn't happen. This is so much the exception, not the rule. That's why I feel the need to ask the question, and I'll answer it myself. I don't think it's going to happen, but you can't say it's impossible that maybe things just came together perfectly for Jordan Mailata, and the norm should more rear its ugly head this year, that Jordan Mailata could actually take a step backwards.
Well, I mean, step backwards, major step backwards, I think, no. Could he take a step backward? Yeah. I mean, who knows? And I asked Jordan this in the offseason, all of it, now he's got $64 million in the bank. Now he's, on the Masked Singer. He's got everybody's telling him how great he is. And he mentioned, the good thing about that is Jeff Stoutland has been on him from day one. And he tells him no matter when he was a rookie who didn't know anything, he would criticize him to what. Now that he's a star player, he does the same thing, and that helps him. There's always a chance of hiccups, and maybe it's not as good as it was last year, but I don't think you're going to see a big drop off. Maybe he's a top 5 left tackle instead of number 2 to Trent Williams. maybe he's not quite as good or quite as dominant, but he's going to be really good. He's too physically gifted. All the questions with Jordan Mailata had to do with the other stuff, the technique, the fundamentals, and Stoutland said the also the mental toughness. He didn't grow up with football. He didn't have Pop Warner. You got to be tough to play football. You could be as big and as strong, but you got to be tough. And he's proven to be he's very tough as well. So all those intangibles the Eagles knew nothing about, plus the technique and the fundamentals. He's risen those to a level that you say, all right, those are good. And then you knew he had the physical gifts. I mean, he's just bigger and stronger than everybody else. I mean, this is a league built on big, strong guys, and he's the biggest and strongest one of them all, literally.
Very true. And the other thing he's got going for him is, and cross your fingers, it stays that way. Hadn't gotten hurt. Now I know he didn't play all those first couple of seasons in the league. If he got hurt sitting on a bench, shame on him. But when he was
Jody. That is my one concern. He did get hurt. He's had back problems. They shut him down at one point. Remember, they kept Jordan on the 53 a lot in the first 2 seasons, even though he wasn't going to play because they were concerned about leaving him. And guys like Ross Tucker, our buddy, and Baldy would always pump him up and say how physically gifted he was. And the Eagles were worried about getting him through the waiver wire. So they weren't going to mess with the practice squad. That's my one concern. And I don't know if I've said that a couple times. He is a 6'8", 380-pound guy who's had back problems. That is my one concern because back problems can bleep you up. Remember Shawn Andrews back in the day. Shawn Andrews was a great player, and all of a sudden he started having back problems. That's my one concern because he's such a big guy, and he's in tremendous shape for being a big guy. He's not fat or anything of that nature. It's kind of amazing how he carries that weight on his frame because he's just so immense. But that always concerns me. And he has had some back issues, and that's something you gotta at least throw into the hopper, so to speak.
Right, but last year was the first year that he played significantly, correct?
Yeah. Well,
he
played at the end of 2020. No, he got hurt. He missed 3 games, I think 2 games with a knee injury, Jordan. He
last year?
Yeah, that was when.
What 2 games was he out for?
I don't have it in front of me. I'll look it up. He remember they had to move. Lane left, and they had to do that shuffling, and then he got hurt, and Andre Dillard came in, and he had Driscoll moving outside. They had a lot of shuffling chairs. I think he missed 2 games, but I'll look it up.
Okay, shame on me. I should have remembered that, but I don't off the top of my head. I thought he played in all 17 games last year. He might miss some time, gotten taken out of a game, but you're telling me he missed 2 full games. I should have remembered that.
He got hurt in practice. It just got rolled up on. Wasn't serious, but he missed, But I'm trying to look it up. 14. So he missed 3 games. But the last game, week 18, doesn't count.
Oh, so, the JV game doesn't count. Yeah. No.
And he played. He started. People forget he started 10 games in 2020. After all he started, and it
was it 10. I didn't think it was that many.
Yeah, it was 10. 10 in 2020. Started 14 last year. 2020 is when it all started in that San Francisco game. And then he just took off last season. He was just tremendous. And by the way, because he came in as that 7th round pick, and we talked about it last year when Lane had his issues, he's like, I'll move to right tackle. Like, even though he's one of the best left tackles in football, even though if he did go to free agency, he would have gotten paid really big, but the Eagles got a big break by getting them done early. Even though it doesn't seem to register to him. He's like, yeah, I'll go play right tackle and let Andre play left tackle. Where he could say, you know what? He could do Jason Peters at this point. Said, no, I want to stay at left tackle. But he's got this personality where it's like, I'll do whatever you want me to do, which, is also phenomenal part of his sort of personality.
Do you think that comes from the fact that he played a different sport as a kid? That lent itself to more one and for all or all for one. That some of the kids that come through the Pop Warner into high school, into college, are more personally driven so that they can make it to the big show someday. That wasn't Jordan Mailata's goal. Most players who make it to the NFL start dreaming about being an NFL player when they're what, 7 or 8, and they get so motivated to do it for the next 13 years. Jordan Mailata wasn't even thinking about the NFL until basically he got into the NFL. Do you think that has anything to do with why his attitude is as good as it is?
I think it has to do with most of those players you're talking about, maybe not early people that hope, but who have a dream of playing in the NFL, they're pretty good, by the time they hit high school, never mind college. And, they get a lot of accolades and they get a lot of people telling them how great they are. Jordan never had any of that stuff. So I don't think he developed that star mentality of I'm this and I'm that. And he still will do, if you told him to play center, he'd go play center, even though he's one of those best left tackles in football. And that's one of the things I said, is that going to change with the money, with the Masked Singer, with everybody telling him how great he is? Doesn't seem like it's going to change. I mean, he's a really well-grounded guy. And I think it's just because how he came up as a player. He was an afterthought. He was a true developmental prospect. And nobody thought he'd develop. They took a flyer, and they had the best offensive line coach in the league, and even he didn't know. They threw him in the deep end of the pool, and they were probably surprised when the head came up and he started swimming. They probably thought he was going to drown, to be honest.
And he is still only 25 years of age, which means the Eagles can put him at that left tackle position and, health permitting, leave him there and not have to sweat him for the next several years. He's Johnny Mac. I'm Jody Mac. That makes this Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. We're going to stay in a JAKIB Sports way. Coming up next, I don't think he's been on with us for about a month because he launched a new show here on
Been
JAKIB
longer
Sports
than that. I don't think he's been on with us since the launch of Sports Take, but I could be wrong.
That's what I mean. Been a while since we've had Big Barrett on with us. Barrett Brooks going to join us next here on Birds 365.